Hey, low-key, Andrew Wiggins is kind of a beast. Hey, make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. Listen, I don't usually like asking for that at the beginning of videos because if you are new here, why would you want to subscribe to me when you just met me? But because we are entering a new era of Heat basketball, we might get a lot of new viewership. So I want to kindly ask for your support because it is greatly appreciated. Now, anyways, Andrew Wiggins was, of course, the first pick in the draft back in 2014, coming out of Kansas, where he was known as Maple Jordan because he's Canadian and plays like Michael Jordan, I guess. I don't know. I think it's really unfair for the media to always compare these young players to legends because it's nearly impossible to live up to that. And while Andrew Wiggins has never really blossomed into a superstar, he has been a very good player in this league for over a decade, and I am excited to see what he can bring to the Miami Heat. Because, of course, he was the headliner in the trade package that sent Jimmy Butler over to the Golden State Warriors. Now, Andrew Wiggins, he's 6'7", he weighs in at about 200 pounds. He's only 29 years old, although his birthday is in just a couple of weeks here, and I think he'll fit pretty perfectly into the Miami Heat starting lineup in one of the two wing spots. Now, I know a lot of Heat fans, including myself, we had some reservations about the trade, mostly because the Heat are taking on some long-term money with Andrew Wiggins. This year, Wiggins is making $26 million. Next year, he's making $28 million. And then the following season, he is making $30 million, which is a player option at the age of 31 years old. Now, I said this a few times, so I'll just kind of reiterate it real quickly. In that final year, I could see Wiggins either opting in or out. It really depends how he's playing up until that point because players that are around the age of 31, sometimes they like to opt out of that final year because then they can re-sign a long-term 4-year deal with a lot of money per year, and that's kind of like their last hurrah, one final contract before they, have to settle for some smaller veteran deals towards the back end of their career. But $30 million is still a lot of money. So if things don't really work out for Wiggins over the next couple of years, he may opt into that final year and take that money just because he wants the money, right? You can't blame him. So it is hard to say at this point whether he would opt in or out, but you'd have to at least operate under the assumption that the Heat have him for the rest of this season and 2 more seasons. Now, that $30 million is a lot, but it's not necessarily a lot compared to some other guys in the league. You can see right here, Andrew Wiggins is just making slightly less than guys like John Collins, Miles Bridges, Nick Claxton, even Tyler Hero, and Wiggins is making slightly more than a few guys like Anthony Simons, RJ Barrett, Tobias Harris, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Jonathan Isaac. So I think salary-wise, compared to his peers, Andrew Wiggins is making a fair amount of money. And even if Wiggins was to opt into that final year or even not opt into that final year, I do think because he is getting paid a relatively fair salary, it could be a tradable contract. So I don't think it's something that you're going to be stuck on for a super long time. Now, as a Heat fan, I don't like saying the word tradable contract because back when the Heat overpaid for James Johnson and Tyler Johnson and Dion Waiters, the Heat said that those were tradable contracts. And they weren't, just because you really don't know how well a guy is going to play in the future. Because just last year, Andrew Wiggins was looked at as one of the worst contracts in the league because he had a bit of a down season. But he's bounced back and he's having a really good year this season where he is averaging about 18 points per game, shooting 44% from the field and 38% from 3. He's never been a big assist guy, only at 2.4 assists, but it does get you a few rebounds at 5 per game. And you can see that he's having a huge bounce back season compared to his previous one. Of course, it was the year before that, or 2 years before that, I believe, in 2021-2022, where Andrew Wiggins made the All-Star team and was an All-Star starter. He's had a few good years in Golden State outside of the last season, but he was dealing with a lot of personal stuff that it's probably pretty easy to believe that it was affecting his on-the-court stuff. We hope, of course, everything is okay with Andrew Wiggins in that regard, and we hope that he's past it, which maybe he is because this season he is having that nice bounce-back season. Now, some people have said that Andrew Wiggins is like a great playoff riser. He was very good in the finals back in 2022. And truthfully, I can't speak on that just because that's the year that the Heat got robbed from making the finals because they said Max Strus stepped out of bounds and he did not. So I kind of boycotted that finals, Celtics versus Warriors, and I really didn't watch it. But looking at the numbers, they weren't great for Wiggins. I mean, he scored 18 points per game with about 9 rebounds, but he only shot 44% from the field, which I guess is what he's shooting from the field this year. But under 30% from three, the efficiency really isn't that great. But I guess he was scoring, and I did hear that he was pretty phenomenal when guarding Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, which is obviously very, very critical. So I'll take people's words for it. They said he was very good in the finals. I believe him. But overall, we do know he is a pretty good offensive player. And obviously in this Heat system, when you're playing next to a guy like Bam Adebayo, who's not a heavy three-point shooter, I guess Khalil Ware starting to implement that into his game as well. But you're going to want someone who could shoot, especially in today's NBA, I guess. And coming into the league, Wiggins really wasn't a great shooter. His three-point numbers with Minnesota kind of hovered around 33%. But then once he got to Golden State, I guess had, Curry rub off on him, if that's how it works. Everyone seems to go to Golden State and be able to shoot. He did pretty drastically up his three-point percentage, where he kind of hovered around 38% in his entire career there. Now, I did find this graphic from Synergy Sports that I kind of want to point out about. It kind of shows a good way in which Wiggins' role has changed since joining the Warriors. You can see the first part here is the type of three-point shots he was taking, which in Minnesota, only 38% of his threes were open catch-and-shoot threes. But when he went to Golden State, 46% of his threes were wide open catch and shoot threes, which of course is critical because that's the best part of an offense is open catch and shoot threes. Whether it's off a dribble penetration or just ball movement, swinging the ball around the perimeter, that is how you play in the flow of an offense. And of course, the Timberwolves weren't necessarily a good team for most of his tenure there, and the Golden State had a pretty well-oiled machine on the offensive end, and they were able to implement Wiggins pretty perfectly into that. And of course, with the Heat having Eric Spoelstra, you do trust him to devise an offensive scheme to best fit the skill set of these players. So then I do look for Wiggins to have sort of a similar role that he did with Golden State. You can also see that his off the dribble threes dropped substantially as far as the amount of times he took them. In Minnesota, 32% of his threes were off the dribble, where in Golden State, only 20% of his threes were off the dribble, which of course, it's good that that type of shot has gone down because that's not a high usage shot. You don't want a lot of bing, 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 isolation, dribble, pull up, three-point shooting because you don't really get other guys involved in the offense like that. That's been our biggest gripe with Terry Rozier this year. He refuses to shoot the wide open catch and shoot three and wants to dance with the ball every time he has it and just force up a terrible shot. That's not in the flow of the offense. It makes everyone else stagnant, and it's just not very good for the offense at all. So it is nice to see that Andrew Wiggins has sort of transitioned his game to be a great part of an offense. And then, of course, you can see here the efficiency just went up drastically, like we were saying. As far as the open catch and shoots, he was 36% in Minnesota, 42% in Golden State. And I should point out this is from 2019 to 2023. So it doesn't include the previous couple of seasons. But regardless, you see his efficiency has gone up in every single category. So he is a much improved player. Now I want to pull up Wiggins' shot chart. This is from this season. And the main thing that I want to note here is those corner threes. You see that he's 45% in the left corner and 42% in the right corner. The corner three is the most important shot when you talk about spacing in basketball, because when you're able to get dribble penetration, like Tyler Hero has been so excellent at doing this year, the corners is the first place that the defense collapses. And then that's where you can now swing the ball out to Wiggins to hit that open shot. So it is critical that he is hitting that at a very good clip this year, especially since he will likely be replacing Haywood Highsmith in the starting lineup. And Highsmith is a 40% three-point shooter this year himself. So you're not necessarily losing too much shooting by supplementing him with Wiggins. And this is very important that he's excellent in that corner shot. Now, he is this season a 40% catch and shoot three-point shooter, which will help the flow of the offense because Tyler Hero is going to have the ball a lot. He is a pretty ball-dominant player, although this year he has shown that he can play off the ball as well. So I think because Wiggins and Hero have both shown the ability to play on and off the ball, It works perfect because we know obviously Hero can spot up, catch and shoot. Obviously we're saying that about Wiggins as well. And Bam Adebayo it seems like he's back to himself over the course of the last week as well. Maybe getting Jimmy, out the locker room. It helps everyone kind of focus. It helps Bam Adebayo not be as distracted as he seemed all year, I guess. Maybe that's part of the reason that Bam's been playing better of late, is he's starting to feel more comfortable again. And when that is the case, you want Bam to get his shots. You want him to have the ball in his hands. And if Bam can have a guy like Wiggins and Hero now space the floor for him, that's only positive for Bam Adebayo as well. In addition to the shooting stuff, obviously Andrew Wiggins is very athletic. He uses that to get to the rim. He can provide that dribble penetration to assist for other players, or just get some easy shots at the basket. I think would help the Heat's clutch offense as well, because he can get to the rim. It's not going to be Tyler Hero having to settle for these deep contested threes because the defense knows that he's the only one that's going to shoot. Now you also got Andrew Wiggins, who can help you get some of those easy baskets. We've seen many times this year where the Heat go on these 4 or 5 minute scoring droughts where they can't get a basket and everything's a jump shot. Well, now you got Andrew Wiggins to kind of go to work and use his athleticism to attack the rim and get some easy looks for you, because he is super athletic. And of course, because of that, he's also an elite defender, especially when it comes to on-ball defense. Really, he can do everything. Spo likes to implement that zone. Wiggins is very good in that zone because you need to be athletic to cover multiple spots on the court and really cover your whole zone. So Wiggins is good at that, but specifically on ball, point of attack, in the isolation stuff, that is where Andrew Wiggins thrives. D-Ball Index put out this tweet just a few weeks ago saying the top 10 perimeter isolation defenders in the entire league. They compiled several stats, including opponent field goal percentage, stats on off-ball screen navigation, on-ball screen navigation, and they used all those stats to compile the 10 best perimeter defenders in the league. And if you look at number 8, you got Andrew Wiggins. So according to their advanced stats, Andrew Wiggins is a top 10 point of attack defender in the entire league. Not to mention, look who number 4 is. It's that boy Davion Mitchell. So very clearly the Heat picked a direction to kind of go more defensively, which I think is good because they are getting back to their identity, because the defense has been awful of late. And Wiggins will drastically help that. And I'm very excited to see a lot of these closing lineups with Wiggins in there. But regardless, the Heat are getting younger. They are getting faster. They are getting better defensively, which is something that I think they've needed for a very, very long time to help compete in today's NBA. The starting lineup, it'll probably still be Hero and Duncan in the backcourt, at least at first. That means that Wiggins will be your 3 with Bam and Ware rounding out your front court. But me personally, I kind of would like to see Wiggins slide up to the 2 spot. So you got Hero and Wiggins leading your backcourt with Jovic, Bam, and Ware as your front court guys. We've seen that tall time 2.0, we're calling it. Shout out Brendan Tobin. That Jovic, Bam, and Ware connection has been awesome this entire season from an offense and defense perspective. And Wiggins being 6'7", he would just really help well-round the size or make the size in that lineup just super well-rounded. And the Heat would go from being one of the smallest team in the league for years to being a team that's actually pretty damn tall. And as a Heat fan, I just find that super refreshing, and that's very, very exciting to me. I suppose you could even do Davion Mitchell at the starting 2 spots. I think that if Drew Smith was still healthy, we might have seen Drew Smith starting by this point already. And Davion Mitchell is a similar player with regards to the point of attack defense that he provides as well. So maybe that he could even do some kind of lineup of Hero and Davion and Wiggins and Bam and Ware. And obviously defensively, that unit is a complete nightmare. They couldn't really do something like that with Haywood Highsmith if the Heat didn't have Wiggins, because then offensively you'd be struggling a lot. But now if you have that lineup, obviously Davion's not a great offensive player. Ware kind of needs guys to set him up. But you still have Hero, who's a 20-plus point per game scorer. Bam's been a 20-plus point per game scorer. Wiggins has been a 20-plus point per game scorer. You got 3 of those in the starting lineup now. You can really put whoever you want next to them, whether it is Duncan for the spacing, whether it is Davion for the additional defense, or whether it is Jovic for the additional ball handling and size. They have a lot of options there. Even to close games, there's quite a lot of options there too, because if there's one final defensive possession in the game that the Heat need, well, then they could put Haywood out there instead of Tyler. You'd have Davion Mitchell, Wiggins, Haywood, Bam, and Ware. Ain't nobody scoring on that team. I'd love to see the Heat start that group and just like play them the whole season. That team could probably win like 60 games, but they would only be averaging like 32 points a night because that team is elite defensively. So you best believe in a clutch game, that's just going to be a critical to see because you will be able to get stops and rebounds late in the game. Now, all of that being said about Andrew Wiggins, I don't necessarily think he's a needle mover. Right now, the Heat actually sit in 6th because the Magic just lost again. They're falling apart. They lost 2 out of their last 10. My God. But the Heat are sitting at 6th. They are 3 back of 4, and they are 4 up of 9. So I guess if you want to be kind of broad about it, the Heat could finish anywhere from 9 to 5, I suppose. Now, they certainly should be better than the 5th spot, or certainly should be better than the 1 game above 500 that they are right now, because you're literally adding Wiggins for basically nothing, because Jimmy Butler really didn't play this season. Now, a lot of what we were saying about Wiggins, you could also say to Jimmy Butler. I don't think it's super unfair to say that Wiggins is kind of a watered-down version of Jimmy. And when the Heat did have Jimmy Butler these last several seasons, they were still a play-in team. That's just why I don't really think the Heat are all of a sudden going to be like a top 4 team going forward. And obviously, when it comes to the postseason, the bar is way lower now because Jimmy Butler is a superstar for a reason, and Andrew Wiggins is not that. So I understand why the Heat had to do the trade. You did get some other nice pieces like that protected, top 10 protected pick from the Warriors. So the Heat will be better for now, but long term, I don't think Wiggins really makes a huge difference at all. But speaking of Jimmy Butler, they did announce what number Wiggins will be wearing today, and he is wearing number 22. I don't like it. I've already been going back and forth with a few people on Twitter because I personally think it's disrespectful to just give away Jimmy Butler's number immediately. Although I understand what a lot of the pushback I got was, which people said, hey, you can still retire Jimmy's jersey when he retires from the league, but right now there's no problem giving it to Andrew Wiggins. And I understand that. I get it. Because guys like Shaq, they gave his number to James Ennis, and Shaq still got his jersey retired. Goran Dragic, his number went immediately to Kyle Lowry and then to Khalil Ware, and I could still see Goran Dragic getting his jersey retired one day. So I guess just because Wiggins is wearing number 22, a number he's wore his whole career, it's in his Twitter bio, his Twitter handle is like 22 Wiggins. I do get if Wiggins wanted to wear that number, the Heat honored it. And I suppose it doesn't mean that they won't retire Jimmy Butler's jersey one day, because they absolutely should. But anyways, on top of that, I'm excited about Wiggins. I know the Warriors fans and organization, I've heard Steve Kerr talk, and the players, they speak very, very highly of Andrew Wiggins. And to me, that's the sign of a good player. That's the sign of someone you want on your team, is if the team that's letting him go misses him, you know? And they traded him for Jimmy Butler, who we know is a good player. So that being said, I am hopeful, I am optimistic that Andrew Wiggins will thrive here. What it means for the team, well, that remains to be seen, as the Miami Heat do play the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow, which Wiggins will not be suiting up for. It looks like his debut will be versus Boston on Monday, which that's going to be a movie, as you get Andrew Wiggins locking down Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for his debut here. It will be beautiful. But let me know all your thoughts down below. Comment what you think about Andrew Wiggins. I'll be reading what everyone has to say. Like the video and subscribe, because we're pushing to 7,000 subscribers. All the support is greatly appreciated, and I can't do it without y'all. I'll see you on the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in the city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.